Welcome to Las Pinata, the podcast where we talk about navigating your creative lifestyle. I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dave. If you enjoy this episode, and if you enjoy this program, please like, follow, and share the program and the episode with your friends.
And today we are talking about the value
of your work.
Valuing.
That'll catch up in post. Hey, so this is Terrance chose the topic today. What are your thoughts on value, Terrance?
Well, my thought was just like charging money for your work. How do you value your work? How do you determine what to charge for your work? Like price guides. Like what do you give it away for free? Where do you start? When do you start charging? How do you start charging? And what do you charge? What's your litmus for that?
Well, do we want to talk economics first? Just like the supply and demand and things like that. I mean, one thing about art is that nobody needs it, not in the same way that they need, not in the same way that they need plumbing, right?
Right.
Not in the same way that they need food or medical stuff. So I mean, what you have to create value. You have to create the demand for it, and. Yeah, I guess that's a question. I know there's a lot of posts out there that talk about how much work is put into it.
Right.
That any amount of art deserves a certain amount of money because maybe there's been a lot of education, there's been a lot of time learning how to do it, and that's absolutely true. You may have invested a lot of money, and you deserve to make money at it. But that's not the way that economics works. Unfortunately, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's not how hard you work.
People. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not how hard you work that determines how much you make.
It doesn't compel. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who spent hundreds of $1,000s on their degrees, and they're making squat from it.
Well, I think of the people who are out in the field picking, berries or cabbage or whatever, and those people work really, really, really hard and get paid nothing. In comparison to the guy that sits in an office and says, "Yeah, hire more of them."
Absolutely. Well, that's one of those things. It's like you've got, very rich people who feel like they deserve it because they work really, really hard, but it kind of ignores the fact that everybody works really hard.
Yeah.
Well, not everybody.
But
everybody does.
Yeah, no, but hard work doesn't determine. So, you can work for a really long time at your craft. I have a friend who's a sculptor, does incredible work, but they take a long time, Like, she does a lot of small, detailed patterns that are repeated over and over and over again until it's, the size of, a person, but it starts with these tiny little things and just keep building and building and building. And that takes time. It takes a lot of time. It's like weaving or any of the things that she makes are like that. And it just takes a lot of time, and it's crafting, and, you can't really monetarily put like those hours into the ultimate value of it. I don't think, realistically for a lot of artists, I would say.
Well, here's a question about the time you put in too, because I think a lot of folks, one of the things, they look at art and they look at sports, I think, in a similar way. If you enjoy what you're doing, if you have, is that half the pay right there, just enjoying it? Right. Do I look like I have a Hitler mustache? Look at this.
No, I do see it now that you've pointed it out. I can see the little dark spot.
I can do a little comb over or something. I don't know. But can you edit that out?
I can edit that out.
But yeah, I think there's some folks that feel like, well, if it's something that's fun, then maybe you don't need to be paid for it, or you are paid for it in just the fact that you enjoy it.
And there are a lot of people that think that, your job is fun, therefore it doesn't have as much value. If you're a musician, especially, you get to go up and sing and dance, and you get to have all that fun, and they don't want to pay you for all the work that's behind that,
And it doesn't seem to matter that you may have had fun, in enjoying the performance.
Exactly.
But but that's the thing. There is that you could be like a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer. You may be like a divorce lawyer that absolutely loves all the gossip that you get, all the intrigue. You may really enjoy your job, or you may be fulfilled by your job. You may be
Right.
somebody who is like a social worker, and you just really get a lot out of that. But I I don't know. I actually, and this is my own philosophy. My philosophy is that everybody's a volunteer, and we should treat them like, in the sense, you know, I I don't mean this artistically. I mean at every job, it's like we're all volunteers to some degree. We don't have to be doing what we're doing, but the money makes the world go round. That's just part
Mhm.
of the mechanics of the world. I kind of feel like everything, and let's be honest with you, 90% of the jobs out there don't add that much to, like, if you work at a cheese puff factory. That's my favorite example, because I'm sure there's lots of cheese puff factories out there. But if you live at, if you work at a cheese puff factory, you are not making the world a better place. You are not giving any real value to the world. This is,
There's
you're
a lot
working
of
hard.
puff lovers out there that would disagree.
Well, you can write those letters to Terrance at gmail.com. Um, but no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of jobs out there that really don't improve society, right?
True.
But
True.
they
Yeah.
still get people can still get paid for them.
Yes. Yes.
And those maybe, and cheese puffs, let's be honest with you, that's an enjoyable thing.
Right.
That is something that people do, um, for entertainment, basically. Or maybe they use it as cheap therapy. I don't know.
But
But I mean, that's all the same stuff that art does. So I mean, at the very least, if somebody deserves to get paid while working at Frito Lay, then they deserve to get paid for music. It's at
okay.
least that valuable. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
I see that. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think it's your work and you deserve to get paid. Ultimately, that's it. But how do you feel about, because a lot of it is like, okay, so you've basically talked me into doing a some sort of web comic, right? Um,
Did I
and yes, yes,
talk
I've
about it?
been
Oh, okay.
drawing. I've been drawing.
Oh, nice. All right, good.
Working on it.
Because I have
Um,
not been following up with the webcomic of my own, so it's good to hear that I inspired somebody else to do it.
well, I started it, and then I was like, oh, this actually could work out, and so like now I'm starting on like the second one.
I think, well, I mean, I think
So,
I think webcomic is ideal for you, but that's not the topic. Go
but
forward.
I have this, where what do I do with it? Do I just put it out there? Like, I don't know. There's a couple of websites, or I guess there's one website. I forget what it's called now. It's an alternative to Instagram, because Instagram is now scraping your visual stuff for AI, and so it's like, oh, if you don't want your stuff stolen for AI, there's another site where you can post these things. So I was like, huh, and then there's always the threat of people just outright stealing your artwork for products all over, like Amazon and Temu and Alibaba and that's a constant threat for artists in this age. Is whatever you do, somebody is looking to take it, in some manner, whether it's AI or it's actual individuals. And so it's like, yeah, so do I give my art away, or should I just be charging it to start with? Like, should it be something, when you're looking to even put anything out? Like, am I, and it's just like, well, how do I value this? That's what that's what got the thought in my head, is how do I value this? Because right now it's just fun and I'm enjoying it, but how do I value that? Do I just say, this is a throwaway, this is free for all, because that's what it's going to be the moment I put it
Uh,
online.
well, I think part of the difficulty of this is, you could reframe this. I mean, it depends on what you mean by value, because I think you're thinking monetary value.
Yes, I'm thinking
But
monetary. I'm strictly
but
thinking.
like, the another way to ask this question is, how do you make money at art? Because um, just because you value it, or you think it should be this value, have this value, it doesn't mean anybody's going to pay for it. So
That's true.
when you put a price on something, It's weird. It's weird with pricing because when you give stuff away for free, that doesn't seem. It's a strange phenomenon that if you charge for something like even a little bit, that people value it more. I mean, even if you charge just $1 for something,
Hmm.
people will value it a little bit more. And my number one goal would be to get an audience. And if I thought that, and I guess I do give away a lot of the stuff. You know, I don't know that that's uh, necessarily doing it. I think that if people actually did spend the money,
Hmm.
then they're more likely to be like, oh, well, there's, oh, what's the sunk cost fallacy or whatever? It's sort of like, I've already invested in this,
Uh,
so I better get my money's worth,
oh
even if
yes,
it's,
yes.
so that's the thing. It's like if somebody puts money into it, then they're more likely to give it due consideration than if they haven't put any money into it. It's more ephemeral, I guess, if there's no money to it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
there's a psychological game going on there. But at the same time, there's such a thing as, like a bare minimum value is very useful psychologically. But at the same time, money is used to, I mean, not money, prices are used uh, to squelch demand. If you're, it's a barrier to people as well. Well, because the way it is that if you've got high demand, you raise the price because maybe you don't have the supply for it, right?
Okay.
So that's the reason why the prices go up, or one reason why they raise prices so that well, we can get on top of the supply. We can, if we need to produce something, by
Hmm.
raising the prices, it slows down the demand so that we can actually produce at a rate. So if you find yourself in a situation where you've got more people asking for a custom piece of art, or whether that be a song or a painting or something like that, then it makes sense to charge money, because a large sum or a larger sum,
Hmm.
because you can only work so quickly, right?
Right. Right.
uh, but I mean, that's again if you have the demand. The question is, how do you create the demand so
And
that
that's the free market, right? Just you give it away so that it gets the audience, so that you're building an audience before you're even.
that's a common way to do it. A lot of people will give out, they call that a loss leader.
Oh, was that like a? I know I was thinking of the long tail, that thing where you give away a whole bunch, and then your super fans are the ones that really spread it and buy it and spend money and join your Patreon and everything else.
Well, there's the thing called like the freemium model, right? That's a common thing with apps and whatnot online, where you give away a certain product for free, and then you upcharge people as you go. It's sort of like, well, we're going to give you extra special deals, and you see that with things like Patreon. Patreon originally just was a way to tip artists that were producing stuff on a regular basis, and then they started leaning more into special gifts or rewards if you sign up for higher tiers, and which I'm not a huge fan of. I really would prefer it was just a situation where I'm putting the stuff out there and people value it so that they're tipping me for it. That would be
Right.
my preference. um, but you put the swag out there, you get your merchandising going, and what ends up happening, I think what concerns me is that it oftentimes ends up that the art is not what people are paying for. They're actually paying for these extra goodies that are built around it. Like if you're doing a comic strip and you're doing Patreon,
Mhm.
for instance,
Right.
maybe people, you're putting it out there, and then maybe people sign up, but they want to get the behind the scenes stuff. They want to see the raw, pencils or something, or they want to have a live session with you, or where you're just interacting with them. A lot of people want access. Um,
Right. And
you,
that's,
you
yeah,
see
that is
that,
something.
yeah. So I mean, so that's something that concerns me. It feels a lot of times that you're giving them that the art is the loss leader, um, and and then everybody, and then you're selling all the other stuff that's just sort of around it, and that's, I don't know. To me, I don't
Yeah,
really enjoy that.
that's kind of disappointing in the sense of like, I want people to value what I make rather
Yeah.
than come back after the fact and say, oh yeah, I liked that. What else you got?
Well, but I mean, to be fair, I mean, it's like if you're dealing with like super fans, what they're doing is they want to get to know the artist, right?
Yeah, I mean, and some of it, yeah, no, it's like, yeah, when you get to super fans, I mean, it's like they are buying everything else in support of your art because they really liked it, So that's a little different.
But I think at the level we're looking at, I mean, that's kind of, I mean, you get to somebody like Taylor Swift level, or
Yeah,
which is as high as you can get, right? So, but I mean, when it comes to um, major label musicians or movie stars, if you've got something where there's, they've got a machinery going, then it's different. People really are paying for the movie. People really are buying the album. People are,
right.
I mean, though I think a lot of people buy Taylor Swift swag as well.
Yeah,
um, they're making, they're paying for the concert,
right.
um, I actually, since the pandemic, I've noticed that a lot of my peers have been whereas they used to uh, play more gigs, just to, they were getting, get a flat fee from the bar they play, and then they get tips and stuff. I've been seeing more folks charging for concerts and whatnot. So, and it may just be that they've leveled up and I haven't, but it's interesting to see. It seems to me that that's more of a trend.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, and I presume it's working because they keep doing it.
Well, I also think that I know, kind of, and maybe it's the influencer culture, maybe it's the content creator, just that whole culture of TikTok and Instagram and all of these that have generated more people thinking that, content creators of anything deserve compensation. So I think that
Well,
there's an underswell of like, oh yeah, I'll join your Patreon because I like, I'll send you a couple bucks. Like I listened to uh, there's a science fiction magazine anthology that continues, and they're always, they do a audio version of it as well, and they're always asking for donations. And it's like, yeah, I love, you guys, they pay authors, so yeah, I'll send them a few bucks.
well, I mean, that's I
It's,
think, I don't know. I think ultimately, in my mind, the value, the monetary value, if we're talking about, is determined by the audience. You know, I mean, what kind of audience can you get? So if you're, you've got a situation where they're paying the authors like that, and you want to support it because you believe in that.
right.
So you're, they're appealing to a certain sense of fairness in your part, and that's where, and you're part of that audience that they want to do. They want to appeal to. Um, I don't know. It seems to me that, if you can get an audience, you can leverage the audience to get money. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of conflating the value. What's the difference between just value and making money here, Terrence? What's the,
I
because
guess
I mean,
maybe
is the question really just how do you make money with art?
I guess maybe that's really the question I have is how do you make money? Because like value, value is a much deeper question, a bigger question. Like what is the value of art? I mean, that's value is a loaded word, I guess, to say here. So perhaps more we're talking just because I was really just thinking of the monetary like
Yeah.
repercussions of what you're doing and how you charge and whether you charge. Is it free? And like your freemium model makes sense. So, yeah.
Well, I mean that's a common model. I'm not saying that's the most fulfilling thing. Now you look at other things like Kickstarters. You
Yeah.
get crowdsourcing, and that's, Patreon's a type of crowdsourcing, but Kickstarter's a different one where you raise a bunch of money
Hmm.
to make something, and what you're basically doing is you're just asking people to pay up front.
Right. Yeah. It's just like preloading your tips.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a similar thing. It's like you give a lot of goodies away
Hmm.
to, extra things that are not the art in order to entice people into making this thing.
Right.
Um,
But also as a creator, once you've created things, and I'm just thinking of like Brandon Sanderson, who in his time off was writing other books and getting them, like, instead of going through his publishers, publishing them like through Kickstarter like campaigns, so that people were just sending him
That,
money for other
that,
books that he would write. So
that's right. Some people actually go for reimbursements through
he's a
Kickstarter.
massive, massive,
Yeah.
author though. So
Well, yeah, you get the Kickstarters not just from struggling artists, but from successful artists now.
all right.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I want to talk about other types of value, though. I mean, it's
Well,
money is one thing. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, well, do you want to wrap this up and maybe we have another discussion about different types of value?
Oh, we can. Okay, hint, hint. Um, well, okay. Well, then let's talk more. But okay, just about making money. I really feel like the number one thing is just making an audience and building up an audience. Which creates the demand.
And
And
then,
if you create the demand, there's a lot of different ways to access that value. But I think ultimately it's about creating the demand. Now that may not come directly from your art. I don't know. The more I don't
no, I
I
think
get
that what
the
you
more
said
I get into
earlier.
doing art. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think what you said earlier made a lot of sense, that you build your audience, you create the demand, but then your audience is ultimately going to determine what the value or what the monetary value is of your work. And it may not be your work that is determining the money that you're bringing in. It may be the peripherals of it.
Well, let me. As I've gotten more and more into the art world, I get more and more disillusioned by the how value is determined. Because, like we were talking earlier about, like, if you charge a little bit of money, that makes people value it more than if you don't,
Right.
which I think is silly. I hate that. I think it's like I really want the value to come first, and then they start sending the money. And but there's other things about it too. I've realized, how much context matters. That value is not necessary. How much the art itself doesn't really determine the value, because the value oftentimes will come from the like, if it's associated with something else. If you have a song, may not even be a very good song, but it's on a particular topic, but it's a topic that's really popular, and it can be used for to promote that topic, or that can be very lucrative. If people that do niche songs about sailboats, there are sailboat conventions. They want people that are going to go do sailboat stuff.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so that's like an example there. It's like it may not have to do with the quality of the music, though. I mean, that always comes into play.
That I'm
There's
sure.
a minimum, I think, a minimum quality you need to reach. But sometimes you can get, just because you touch on a topic. Other things are about tastemakers. If you have a tastemaker who says, "Hey, I like this," then suddenly your value skyrockets, right?
Right. Right.
And it's because somebody gave other people permission to like it.
Hmm.
People get scared. People are scared to like things because they don't want to be judged. There's a lot of judginess out there. So, I mean, value comes from the tastemakers,
Yeah.
and
So,
so associating yourself with somebody.
so you're working on your Hanukkah album and trying to get Adam Sandler to promote it, is what you're saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you that's ways to build value. Another way to do it is this always gets me. Well, like, okay, we're doing this podcast, right?
Right.
Where we're talking about creative lifestyle, and, like, conceivably somebody might listen to this and think, oh, these guys know what the fuck. These people know what they're talking about. These people are gurus, and we're mid-level artists, right? We're not super successful, but we're not rock bottom by any means.
Right. Right.
We have experience. That's where we're coming from. But there are going to be people out there that are like, oh, this guy has a TED talk, so this person this person must be high status, and therefore it raises value.
Yes.
So that's another way. It's like by doing something like this. And I'm giving away the secret here. But like, by doing something like this, it raises status, and
Yeah.
therefore may raise the value of the art and the money that you can charge for it. Same with winning an award. If you win an award, you can, when you're trying to, that'll raise the
Yeah,
value.
and it is, and there are a lot of awards programs that are, you know, really funded by, people trying to win awards, and so, you pay to play, and you get to win because you paid a lot, and then suddenly you're like,
Well, I think I don't think it's
or,
legal for you to have a
oh,
contest.
it may not be straightforward in that sense, but
And
there are those contests, and there are those awards, and there are those people who then have that award, and that does raise their status, and they can say, I mean, I can say I'm an award winning,
yeah.
anything. So, and that just, they don't have to list what award they won. They're just an award winning,
Well,
whatever.
it's also, there's, think of it this way. Think about like how many like books on various topics are written by doctors,
Hmm.
but they may not be a doctor in the subject that they're writing about.
Right, right.
So it's like sometimes you get those titles and that'll raise the so it's a little bit, like I said, it's disillusioning that a lot of times the value of your art is about all these superficial things that don't have to do with the art. I find it frustrating. I wish there was a way to just I wish that people would, listen to like music the way that I listen to music, where I think I listen to music and I fall in love with music because of the music. I may be lying to myself. This
Hmm.
may be human psychology that's inescapable. I'm sure there are songs that I like just because I associate them with whatever, the day that
Right.
I went on this great date at a park or something.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I find that I listen to music, and a lot of times it's before I try to avoid the image, because I feel that that's what's always pushed on a lot, and it's like I hate a lot of the images, or they're images that I would not be attracted to, but I like the music.
uh,
There's specifically a band that I was listening to for like a year, and it was like one of my top listens on Spotify, and then I found out, like, at the end of the year, like when they tell you, your genres that you're big on, it's like clowncore, and I'm like, what was I listening to? And these guys are dressed up like clowns, and I'm like, oh, I never knew. So, I mean,
that's
stuff like that, where it's like, but they, a lot of, and maybe it's just because I'm older, the images that they're pushing, like the image they push is often is a turnoff for me, because they're not going for me. They're not looking for me to listen to their music. So
Well, right
it's,
right now, I'm trying to. Well, it's like you look at advertising, and it's been a long time since advertising focused on what will the product do for you. Where it just straightforward says, oh, this will give you it tastes good to give you an energetic burst, whatever. I mean, they sort of maybe do that, but for the most part, most advertising has to do with associating a product with lifestyle. With a particular lifestyle. They're trying to associate it with a demographic. And right now, one of the podcasts, another podcast. I got two other podcasts I'm doing right now, where I'm trying to associate my music with other things. Now, I'm a huge movie lover. Here, this will be my chance to plug some stuff. I'm a huge movie lover, so I've got this podcast called Mr. Waz. That's MRWOS. Music reviews with original songs. What I do is I'll do a movie review, and then I'll play one of my songs that I think has a similar theme to the movie.
ah,
And so I'm trying to, and I know that in the past, there are two things I know. People like my speaking voice more than my singing voice, and they like my movie reviews, usually because they're spoiler free. I think they're fair and they're spoiler free. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to leverage that and try to see if I can get it, expose my music more, and also to try to expose it to a not a fan base that's not oversaturated with music, right?
mhm.
That because it's like you're constantly going for music fans. So I'm trying to find an audience that hasn't been tapped as well, um, and might be more receptive to creating this association of music with movies. Also, I just love movies, so it would be cool to somehow get in with other movie lovers, you know. And I don't know. This may not. I did a review of Furiosa recently, and the song. I can't imagine people who love the movie Furiosa are going to like the song, but and maybe vice versa. You know, I don't because I know the person that I wrote the song with. I don't think she likes violent action movies. So it's, but the theme of the lyrics was very, you know, it was really matched up. So I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. That just made me think of. Have you ever done Music League?
No, what's musically?
Oh, we'll have to talk about it some other time. I'm just
Well,
like,
wait, does it have to do with the topic of value?
no, not at all, not at all. But
Well,
it's
Terrence, what are some ways that you've tried to create value for
well,
your what you've produced?
well, this is where I was starting. Was like, I'm starting to put something out, and I was questioning the value. That's where we started.
Well, but I mean, have you when you've like promoted your you know, Strictly Global or something like that? You know, there have been programs you've worked on and that you produced, and I mean,
I mean, those already had, I mean, those already had audience out there,
okay,
a large enough audience. So, and it was, I mean, we weren't charging for it. I'm not, there
yeah,
was no monetary, it was, I mean, a lot of it, my work was nonprofit, or it was, film work, which was like not, that comes, somebody else gets that money, that doesn't, I wasn't,
sure.
or,
Well,
it was
but you were
news,
making you were
which
getting donations though, right? I mean, how did your
we did, normally we didn't, do the pledge things. We only did that one year where we tried to do pledges, like the,
was it funded through the government? What was that? What was how was it even funded?
uh,
Just getting into stuff we shouldn't talk
this
about.
is, well, no, it's just complicated because, I mean, basically my show was free. My show was free.
No, 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 no.
It was,
But
it
it
was,
wasn't free because you were getting paid for it. So
well, I
somehow,
was getting, I mean, it was free in the sense of, um, it was free in the sense of, I mean, it was just me working, it was a lot of me working, and the back end of it was that the network had money from sales of things like on the tower, and sales like bandwidth, and sales sales and minor small
well,
amounts of
well,
government, but
this is interesting. Okay, because they were making money. The way that they were making money, they were funneling that money into making this publicly accessible stuff.
right,
Right.
right, right.
So they were
I mean, a lot of it was just leveraging one thing against another so that they
yeah.
had, they could take the money that they were doing, that they were getting for this, so that they could pay for the other thing that got them, noticed. And it was so that it would get the name out, and I guess in a sense, building an audience, for
And did
products.
you have numbers on the audience? Did you have numbers on who were watching?
Oh, I mean, then, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, well, not necessarily who were watching, but I had households, number of
Well, but you
households.
knew like how many. So you knew that you had an audience, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you knew that however many thousands of people, or I
Yeah.
don't know what your but
33 million
so
households.
what?
We
Sorry,
were like 33 million households. We
that's
were,
quite a lot. Yeah, so
yeah, we
that's
were
like huge.
everywhere. But
That's
that's
huge.
households. That's not number of viewers. So there's a difference. You know,
Well, yeah, because
the
there'd be
fishing
more.
network is in millions upon millions of households. How many people are watching it?
Oh, you mean it's accessible to those
Yeah,
households? It's not necessarily on the air. Okay.
right, right. But
Um,
we knew that we had an audience. So.
but you had an audience, and you were so that's kind of interesting there. So, um, but you didn't try to monetize it.
Well, the nature of my show was that you really couldn't, in the same way. And it was nonprofit, so we couldn't,
Yeah.
monetize it in that sense either.
Yeah.
We were pushing towards more of an MTV model, where we were going to then be moving away, because it was music videos. It was music videos. It was a lot of product from other artists, basically, that we would promote, because basically that's all MTV was initially, was promotion for music artists. And if you have to, and so you're taking their promotional pieces and making a show out of it. You're interviewing artists. You're talking about like who's on tour, where they're on tour, so it's like news and information about artists, like about music artists, so it's a lot of it is something though, and it's what MTV ran into was you can't unless you make specific deals with those artists,
Uh-huh.
you can't own a show. You can't own like that block of
Okay.
like you got the bandwidth to get onto places and get into people's homes and get viewers, and if we ran commercials we could sell commercial time, and then you do something like a total request live where you've got like this is the time where everybody needs to watch, so you draw as much of your audience into that time period as you can, and then you boost up your sales of your commercial time, right? And so that was kind of so there's a lot of other factors I feel like that were definitely in that. So I don't look at that as I definitely don't look at that as like the same way as monetizing my art, I guess.
Well, but I mean, I think the thing is that there was a value there, but it was just
Oh yeah,
untapped. It was untapped for technical reasons,
right,
right?
right. I mean, it's like it would be like
Money.
us like sitting here, and if we bring in artists and trying to talk to them, but then charging them to come onto the show or something, or charging people a Patreon fee towards hearing them, but it's I don't know. It's
No, no, the technical part doesn't. The point though is that I was just kind of curious to see like what was the situation there. But I mean, it was a valuable show.
yeah, yeah. No,
You know,
I
valuable
thought
show. A lot of people watched it.
yeah,
They you had an audience, and you could have monetized it if you could get over the legal hurdles of the whole thing.
right, yeah. No,
Um,
there was a yeah,
so that's something that could have been done.
right.
Um,
Like yeah,
but
no,
it's
we were
interesting to me. It's interesting to me that though that your station basically did something that's kind of like crowdsourcing in the sense that it's peripheral stuff that you're selling to support making the art.
well. A lot of it was also explicitly what people were paying for. I mean, for my show was separate from like most of the program.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, you had a lot of programming, that you had things that were bought. I mean, now that network, does nothing but sell like foreign mysteries and stuff. But that was stuff that they were getting money so that they could put those on, buy them, and put them on the air, and then people watched them, and then they were selling DVDs of them, and that was funneling back.
Okay.
And so, I mean,
But
there's
people can still watch them for free.
right there. I mean, but there were a lot of different avenues that they were
Yeah.
generating, and that's kind of like what you do as an artist, right? I mean, you just have to have a lot of different diversify your ability to make
You're just
to make fun.
hustling. You're just hustling, trying to make whatever money you can.
So
But it's interesting to me though that they were still basically producing something that people could access for free,
right,
and they
right,
were finding ways to stay in business
right. I mean, as a
around,
nonprofit, that's all you're doing, right? Is
you know. So I mean, there's a lot to be said about if you have your own personal value on it. I think, and this is a question: do you need to make money necessarily to be satisfied?
mhm.
Um, with making your art, because what we're talking about is that you in today's world you may be making that money from all this other stuff and it being used to support the making of the art.
Right. Well, I think that wraps it up, Dave.
Hey, we got 20 seconds. Let's not. Yeah, let's go. Okay, let's wrap it up. Let's see. We actually. So that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, follow, and share the program with your friends. Also, I'm going to do the whole outro.
Yeah, I was going to say you got to do it.
Also, check out my other
Check out
podcast.
Dave's other podcasts. Here, also, I'll do it.
Terrance, yeah, okay, yeah. There we go.
Also, check out Dave's other podcasts: Raw Songwriting, Sleepy Tales and Slumber Tunes, and his movie review. Actually, say why don't you say that part?
My movie review show, Mr. Waz. That is movie reviews with original songs. Now it's time for you to whack your own pinata and see what shakes out.
Get lost.
Beat it.
Oh.
Play the Play the outro, Terrance.
Well, I was reading still. I was like, oh, play the outro.
You don't have to say that.